Hello and welcome to Autism Odyssey. I am your host, Betsy Hicks-Rust, and I am joined here today by the person who, when I hear her ringtone, I will literally drop everything I'm doing to pick up the phone. My favorite person, Jessie, my daughter. Welcome,
Oh,
Jessie.
thank you. Hey, it's officially recorded now. I'm your favorite person, huh? Is that... No takebacks.
You still have that competitive edge.
Oh, look it. We were both drinking from our ember.
Oh, that's so. We are drinking from our ember. Okay, this is our favorite thing in the world. Oh, that's so funny. Mia just texted. That's our other daughter. She knew. She knew I said that to you, probably.
She could feel it in the ether. Hmm.
Yeah, we love our Ember cups. It keeps our beverages warm. It's chargeable. This is not an ad, although they
Unfortunately, ember.
should pay me because I sell enough of them to people. So, Jess, I wanted to have you on because I think that we need to hear more from siblings about things that you have to deal with. And I have learned so powerfully over the years, especially now that you and Mia are adults, just how much and I'm not trying to say this like as if I'm a bad person, but how much pain I unpurposefully caused you. How if I had worded things differently or done things a little bit differently, I could have prevented a lot more pain. But we're all in this new frontier of trying to figure it out. So I kind of want to, there's a lot of things that I want to talk to you about. And the first question that I'm actually really interested in is, when did you first realize that your brother was different? So before I start, we're speaking about Joey. He's 31 years old. Jessie's in her late 20s. I won't give it away. Her very
I'm 28. I'm not shy about that. Um,
yeah, and
well, I think it's important too to understand the age difference between Joey and I
yeah,
and Mia. Mia and Joey are twins, and they're
right.
3.5 years older than I am. Um, okay, so you sent me very lovingly and warningly kind of a list of topics that we were going to be covering on this. And transparently, I was like, oh, I'm going to be able to answer these super easily. I'm not going to study and think about what I'm going to say. Um, and I was looking at them before we started, and it was a little bit more complicated than I thought it was going to be, than I was prepared for. Because a lot of the stuff that we're going to be covering, I've quite honestly are still topics that I'm trying to figure out and kind of dive into myself. So, anyways, with that being said, racking my brain, the first time that I really paid notice to the way Joey was and how it was affecting our family, I can't really pinpoint it to a moment, but it definitely would have been at times when we were out in public, because otherwise it's just normal life. I mean, Joey was still my brother who I loved and I was annoyed by, but not because of his autism, but just because he was my brother. And in the same way, I was annoyed by my sister. And that was all normal. But it was really when we started going out in public, not that we hadn't before. I mean, you've always been really good about having us and go out to eat and go out on vacations and do things. We were never sheltered inside, but it was probably when I was kind of maybe preteen or something. I mean, I think that's when everyone starts paying attention to themselves, and
Right.
that's when I was very aware of just how people were looking at us. Um, I know that's a topic we'll dive into later, so I don't want to get ahead of myself. But my super short answer is
Yeah.
I don't really know. It's kind of always been my life.
But it does make a difference that you're noticing things. I mean, very fair. And I have to say that certainly, okay, we have to add to the fact, and this is not discussing things that Mia would not be comfortable with, but Mia also is on the spectrum, and she had her own neurodivergency of ways that she was looking at things. But to you, it was a big deal. To you, there was a lot of embarrassment. one of the things that I remember really clearly about you, and things I used to say to you all the time, is stop looking at people. Like, stop looking for their reaction. Focus on Joey or whatever it is we need to do, but you don't need to look to see what they're staring at. How could I have done that differently? What could I have said, do you think, to 8-year-old Jessie, who was super embarrassed at her brother's meltdown, like on a vacation or in a restaurant? What could I have done, do you think, to say something differently, as opposed to just stop looking at them? Which wasn't really empathetic.
How honest are we going here? How
We
deep
could go,
therapy are we going?
we could go really deep. We could go, I don't mind. I am such an open book, literally and figuratively, as I'm writing my book and getting my book finished. Everyone's going to know everything about me anyway, so just whatever.
Um, I think a huge issue I had growing up was there was almost too much from your side of the just don't look at them, it's fine, everything's normal. And I think I was just craving some recognition that this wasn't normal.
Very fair.
And
Very fair. Yeah.
I don't know. I think that you were just trying to understandably make us feel like there shouldn't be any reason why we should be feeling the way that we were. And so you were being very positive and pushing it towards that direction. When I was just this kind of confused, angsty kid who was like, I felt like I was going crazy because out of our family of 5, I was like, am I the only one in this family that's realizing that this is a thing, that other people are, bothered by us? And that's more so for me what it was, is it wasn't necessarily the looking, because even today, as a 28-year-old, and when we're out with Joey, it's not the looks that bother me, because I look at people like Joey on the streets, and it's not because I'm judging them. It's honestly because I'm curious and I'm wanting to see if they're like Joey, and I'm analyzing their behavior and
Right.
just a curiosity standpoint.
Right.
So it's not the looks that bother me. It was we're out at a restaurant and there's clearly a couple that's trying to have a romantic evening, and Joey's up and walked up by their table and is rocking right next to them. And I'm like, Mom, we should really bring Joey back or move him in a different area. And you're like, he's fine. He's happy right now. We don't want to bother him. He's happy. And I was like, but these other people and their moments. And that's, and that, I think a lot of that probably drove me to working in the hospitality industry that I do today, is because I'm extremely hyper aware of those situations, about everyone's little
Right.
moments and interactions, and wanting to make sure that they're not bothered by others. And I don't know, it's probably an issue that I've had built, that I am hyper focused on that stuff. But
Sure.
that's, I think it's the recognition for me that you were just always wanting to allow Joey to be happiest in the moment he was. If Joey is not screaming and he's content on his own in the state that he's in, I get it. You're like, do not move him, do not touch him, please just let him be so we can all have a great time together. And I didn't see it that way.
Because I think that's a big part that I want to bring up. There is a certain level of exhaustion that parents like myself face. And for those people who don't know who Joey is non-speaking. He has meltdowns. He can scream very loudly. He can take
Very
things.
loudly.
He can be very, very disruptive. The one thing that we do always had in our favor is that he's not a very large individual, so he
Yes,
doesn't
thank God.
it doesn't intimidate people. He doesn't make people feel like he's going to hurt them or anything
No,
such as that.
he's
So
very strong.
but he is strong.
He's just pure muscle.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think that's what's been interesting about Joey. And I know you've talked about this before with the vest that you created, is if Joey is just standing on a corner, he looks like every other Joe. Like,
Yep. Yep.
you know, it you wouldn't know until he moves and starts stimming and rocking that he's, you
Right.
know, in a different world. So,
Well, like when we were in San Francisco and he grabbed somebody's cell phone and the person threw him across the street, like that's what
exactly.
happens when people don't know what's.
I remember one time, um, we were on a vacation, and Mia, my sister, and I and Joey we were by the pool area, and we were walking from one pool back to another area where you and some friends were at, and we um we were walking through the area, and Joey, I think, was just right behind us, but he was with us. And we turned around, and we realized he stopped at someone's table and was eating their pizza. And the group was obviously like, what the and we were like, I'm so sorry. We had to explain the situation. But we're all so young, and Mia and I were just like, sorry, he's autistic, he doesn't realize it. But then we're also kind of freaking out because Joey has very specific dietary restrictions, and so we're like,
We're in
we
trouble
just kind of
by everybody.
we just kind of like shuffle him around. I think we tried to like get the food out of his hand and out of his mouth or something, and but he was totally normal about the whole thing. He was just walking. He just stopped at someone's table and just started eating their pizza.
Don't you wish you had that kind of freedom? Don't you wish that like you had that much of not caringness
I
in
do.
in your
Yeah.
psyche that you would just be like,
Yeah.
I want it now.
I think a few steps later he then like pushed someone into the pool that was standing off right next to it. There was a lot that happened within that 5 minutes. And that like perfectly sums up who Joey is, or living with Joey is. Joey, thank God he doesn't, I don't think he does it anymore, but he went through a huge phase where anyone that was standing next to the edge of the pool was pushed in.
And can we talk about why that was the case?
This probably the splash.
Well, no, well, that, but because you kids loved it when he would push you into the pool when you were little. Do you remember that? Like
Hmm.
you would love any sort of interaction with Joey. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
you would sit on the side and you'd be like, Joey, push us in. Like, great. That's a great thing to train. Thanks.
So you don't think about that stuff. You don't think about him. I mean, that's just to our point is, um, growing up, I didn't look at Joey as being autistic really. He was just, I mean, he
Right.
was different,
You
but
just
we would play with him in whatever way we could, not realizing that with him being autistic, he's going to take certain activities and like
right.
focus on that and just continue doing it without understanding the social norms or the consequences of it. Um,
Which is interesting because he still says to this very day, whenever he's really funny and being silly, he goes, Joey, no, Joey, no. But he does it on a girl's high pitched voice. So he goes, Joey, no.
it's so high. None of us are quite able to
But
get to the,
going
the
back for how many years his sister would say, Joey, no. And now he just thinks it's a funny sound. So he's still.
yeah.
But this is good. So let's talk about this kind of connection that you did have with him.
Hmm.
And did you feel like you had your own special way of communicating with him, or
Yeah.
and you can talk about that from back then, and we're certainly going to talk about now because it's obviously very different. But like, where has that gone? The ways that you've communicated.
Yeah. When I was younger and I was trying to rack my brain if I could put a timeline on it, I'm thinking around the 9 to 12 year age marker. Joey and I were really close. I mean, we would cuddle all the time. You would remember, Mom. I mean,
Yeah.
we'd play around. I built his Thomas tracks for him. I went through a huge phase where I was trying to do these itinerary lessons, learning lessons with him, just because I wanted to be with him and interact with him, and I was like really into trying to help him. Um, and even though I know lack of eye contact is a huge part of autism, or when Joey gives you eye contact, it's really intense and deep. And
Yeah.
I remember still, I mean, even to this day, but really as a kid, I would look at him and he would look back, and there was just undoubtedly a connection. Um, and that's where the whole me feeling like Joey was just another sibling aspect comes in, because it would be a situation where someone was arguing or someone was laughing or something that you would normally like side eye and look at your sibling with to see their reaction. And I would do that with Joey, and he would look back, and there'd be like this understanding. And there really was this unspoken connection that we had. Joey was super affectionate as a kid.
I know. He's
Yeah,
he lost that, I guess, in his teen years, probably.
probably. Yeah, he just stopped like being held and touched, and he didn't really let you hold him for long, but
But he did.
a
He
lot more than
more.
he does now.
Right.
I'm
Right.
actually, this is not staged, but this is on my desk. I look at it every day.
Oh, look at that! Isn't that is
Which
just
that's me. And I
oh,
think it's just such a great example of kind of how the three of us are, because he's just kind of cuddling between the two of us, and there's a lot
it
of
is. It's such
love.
a great picture, especially with Mia, who doesn't like ever look at the camera to this day.
I know even Joey's looking at the camera in that picture.
Mia, we love you so so much.
um,
Mia's one of the funniest people I know, by the
yeah,
way.
she is.
She's very, very funny. So that's great. How has Joey, as your brother, how has it helped you see people and the world differently? Because being in hospitality, you probably, you're exposed to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Both you and Michael. I know you hear a sound that reminds you of your brother, and it brings you there immediately.
Oh, all the time. Michael and I, we will be out in public, and I'll hear like a ah or
Yeah.
something, and immediately I go like, "That's a Joey. There's a Joey out there."
Yep.
Um, and I guess even just through saying that, I realized that there's not a what is that? What's going on? I need to figure out what that is. It's just, oh,
Right.
there's someone around here, and they
Probably might be autistic. They might.
exactly, yeah.
Right.
Exactly. I guess you could say the obvious would be there's just a lot of patience and understanding for any family member or any individual who is neurodivergent, or, even in the industry that I'm in. I mean, we certainly don't have many, adults like Joey that are coming in or guests or anything like that.
Right.
But part of my job is I sit down with these groups for an hour and a half at a time and just talk to them. And I think there's just a lot of empathy and understanding that I have for everyone than I normally probably would have. Because it really comes down to you just don't know what people are dealing with in their story. And even if you come across someone who's really rude, a lot of times I think, what are they dealing with at home? What is their background? And I try to have a little bit of understanding for whatever that situation is. So that's a big one that Joey has brought to me over my life, is probably just patience and understanding. Not for everyone, but it's definitely more than it probably would be.
It's good. I like that. And it is something that you almost can't help but be a part of when you are growing up with somebody who has special needs, is to have that sort of awareness. But yet you can go the other way too. I mean, you have beautifully maneuvered into a life of empathy rather than an anger that could
Yeah.
could have evolved from it all. So I have a lot of credit to you on that one as well. So
Thank you.
thank you for that. To this day, what do you feel about when you come out and you visit? And even now, we went to go see Wicked.
I'm still singing those songs right before we logged into this. I'm like, I can't get this out of my head.
And we took Joey, and he
Yeah.
had a really, really good time.
I did. Yeah.
We were actually shocked. For 3 hours. He sat
Yeah.
like incredibly perfectly. If you see somebody giving dirty looks to him now, or disgust, or like, ugh, like something like that, now how does it make you feel? Anything different than when you were little?
So this is very much so still something that I'm I'm working through. It kind of goes back to what I was saying in the beginning, that there's a difference in looks. If someone's just looking at him, or I don't know, if it's just on that type of level, and they're analyzing him or whatnot, I could care less. I think it's actually great that they can study him and normalize him, and see what a healthy family lifestyle with someone like that looks like, because we're all having fun and loving him and still living a normal life. The thing I have a hard time with still is when it's disrupting others' experience. For example, the movie theater. I was very anxious going into that because I knew we are going into a room packed with people, and there will be, I mean, we've seen the play Wicked, the musical, 3 times. I've seen it 3 times on Broadway. So I know the storyline well. And I know that there's obviously a lot of singing, so there's noise and there's interaction. But there's also some very serious moments, and those dips when it gets quiet. Oh my gosh, my anxiety was so high because I just didn't want a scream or a song or whatever he was going to do ruin the moment for 100 people in the theater or whatever it was.
So I don't want to try to create a therapy session here, but I'm genuinely interested and I respect that, because you get a lot of that from me. I'm definitely a person who, Ron, by the way, Ron and Nick both, mostly Ron, my partner, could care less what anybody else is going to do.
It's wildly expect him for that.
And we love that about Ron, because
Yeah.
Ron, if Joey's having a meltdown, Ron will take over. He doesn't care what anybody thinks. So why is it that we're willing to let someone else experience be more important than our own, or somebody whom we love who truly has a right to be there? I mean, that's always something I have to question with myself too, because everybody is kind of creating their own reality, and it's like, this is a world with a lot of neurodivergency in it. We all need to be a little desensitized, a little bit more empathetic, and a little bit understanding. And I can understand to a certain degree. Like, there was a big thing about that on Broadway recently when an autistic individual was consistently disrupting the play because they were saying things, and the people on stage were like, it's okay, but people around were very bothered by it. So it's a really rocky line. Like, it's not a straight, it's this way or this way. It's very gray, I guess is the way to say it. But we do have to realize that Joey is at the beginning of a large amount of individuals. He's one of the older on the end. And as they are coming into this world, how is it that we can all just, everybody, because even if you're not with Joey, like you said, like you're watching something and you hear that voice, and I'm sure your heart goes directly to that mother or that individual, whatever it might be. But knowing that, hey, everybody's okay. Everybody can relax a little bit, and we're going to get through this. If it's continuously disruptive, then there's a need to get up and maybe change the situation. But just a little, squeal here and there, I think we all need to chill out a little bit about. That's my own thought. But you can have different thoughts. You're older now. You don't have to think like me anymore.
And again, this is something I'm still working through, so I'm not in a place where I feel like I can help others through it with my advice. But from my perspective, I'm someone, and maybe this stems from my childhood with Joey, but I'm someone where if I go into a movie theater and the person 5 seats away from me is fumbling with their candy and popcorn, oh my gosh, it completely takes me out of the whole experience. I don't go to the movie theater just because of that. So I'm just someone as is, that little distractions like that, they really take me out of an experience that I'm wanting to fully be a part of.
And I get that. I'm very audio sensitive. I get that. Like, those little sounds can really, really bother me. It's an audio sensitivity.
I think that it's healthy to have the perspective that you were saying that you have for Joey and for others that are in that situation. But there also needs to be this balance of understanding that, you can't just go in and be like, well, I'm above all of you, and even though I'm ruining a few hundreds others' experience in this theater on Broadway, it doesn't matter because this person has the right to enjoy it too.
I get
Ugh,
it.
it's so great.
It
Even
is.
saying it, it's like, ugh, they have every right to be there as well, but it's also,
But
it's
it's hard. And
hard.
let me tell you something. As somebody, so I'm a public speaker. I've been a public speaker since you were little. You used to come to all my lectures when I was little and
And
sit in
I'd
the
sit in the
back.
back and do my homework.
And obviously, I was speaking with my late husband, who's a pediatrician, and we would talk about nutrition and nutraceuticals and things such as supplements and all kinds of holistic things in the world of autism. And sometimes people would bring their autistic individual with them.
Hmm.
And as a speaker, it was hard. It's really hard because as a speaker, you are trying to stay super focused, and now you're hearing these sounds or the screams or whatever, or them talking or whatever, and it becomes really, really difficult to handle. So it's something that there is no right or wrong area. I think it's a really interesting discussion, and I think I'm going to do another podcast on that particular topic with maybe somebody who's not as scarred as you and I. As you and I are. I'll bring someone else on so I won't badger you on this topic anymore for that. But I asked this kind of at the beginning, and I kind of want to circle back to it. I think I loved what you said about if it had been recognized that this is hard and that I wasn't crazy and that this is a hard thing to deal with, it would have been easier to swallow. But you just really struggled with the anger of why are you not seeing what I'm seeing?
Yeah.
So I want to go back to that because I want to talk about how I feel now, and I counsel families on this now, is that if you are dealing with your sibling that's really, really struggling, to give them that empathy, to be like, you're right. That is hard. Now, maybe your life is harder, and maybe the individual that's neurodivergent is the hardest of all. But that doesn't discount the fact that this one person in the dynamic of the family is not having a hard
Yeah,
time.
if I can add to that, with everything that you're saying, I think it's very easily, people pass over the reminder that, okay, as a parent, you're going through this as well, and it's hard. It is so hard. However, you had Joey at 27, right? So you had 27 years before this was brought into your life, before you ever had to deal with this.
Yeah.
I have had this in my life since day one. And
Makes me want to tear up. But that's big. Yeah.
And so there was never a time in my life where I didn't have this as my reality. And you need a bit of coaching and guidance through it. And honestly, maybe we should have had a therapist we went to as kids. I don't know, maybe that would have helped out because you are human. You're going through it. I mean, you don't know all the answers. You don't know how to coach us through it. You're just trying to be a good mom and figure it out yourself. Which another thing I wanted to bring up is I think something that parents can really do to help their kids out, that other kids that they have that aren't like Joey, is to try to find time to spend with them on their own. Meaning, Joey was the prime focus in our family all the time. And if there was maybe even once a month where it was, okay, Mom and Jessie, you guys are doing stuff on your own, it's your day, it's just the two of you where you can talk and do stuff and go out, I think that actually would have been really healthy and pretty significant for both of us. Because I know you would have loved to spend more time with me as a kid, and not that you didn't, but Joey was always where your energy went to. And that's something that I've been able to see in retrospect. Also because Michael, my husband, he has two nephews that we're very close with. They are 6 and 8 years old, and they are going through, or they've just kind of finished up, their parents going through a very long divorce. and it's resurfaced a lot of feelings I had as a child, and that's
I don't think we
actually,
mentioned that. I am divorced from your father.
yeah,
That, yeah.
yeah, they divorced when I was 5 years old, and I never saw that as being an issue because my parents are two human beings who should have never been together. Aside for the aspect that I was created, um, you two are like the most opposite human beings that should never be together. So, and I recognized that at a very young age. And so I never had the craving of wishing you guys were together. Like having you two divorced has always been the preferred method. Um, but it's little things that you don't really realize had an effect on you. Like, I really didn't think that the divorce had an effect on me until I've broken it down as an adult and I've seen the effect it's having on my young nephews now. Um, and so it's exactly stuff that's kind of bringing it back to this, where finding the time to individually focus on every single child is so important. And you don't have to do it all the time, but just even as a kid, knowing that that's happening and that that is a focus in your parents' eye is pretty big. Um, I mean, did we, it's not that we weren't close growing up at all, but do you know what I mean by that?
Well, I think what it was more of is because John was phenomenal with taking care of Joey so that I could, like, when we would go to Disney, he would take Joey so I could spend more time with the two of you girls.
Absolutely, which was huge.
More of the issue was that when I did do something, it was with the girls and
Yeah.
not, and you and Mia are incredibly different.
Yes.
So that made it just another layer. Like it was like three siblings in very different needs,
Yeah.
all trying to get their needs met. I am working, I'm working like 30 hours a week at my job. We luckily had like nannies for the times that I was working and things like that. But I mean, I'm scrambling to just be there for all three of you very individual children and work and be a wife because
Yeah.
I love my husband. He
Yeah.
passed away 9 years ago. And so yeah, that's it is super interesting to be able to find those times. And yes, we did. You and I did have, I mean, I'm sure you don't have a lot of memories about them, but we did spend, and to be honest with you though, in hindsight, I would have liked to have scheduled those more rather than having them happen because you demanded it. In other words, you would demand it. You'd
Would
be
I?
like, "No, I don't want to be with them." I'm like, "Okay, I'll go with Jessie. You guys stay with John," kind of a thing.
Yeah.
You would demand that. But it would have been so much better for our relationship if it had been a scheduled opportunity rather than a demand. And I think in hindsight now, I would have done that a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, nip it in the bud
Yeah.
with that.
Right. Show that there was an intention behind it rather than,
Yeah.
okay, like, yeah, let's do it.
Right.
Not that it was like that, but
Is this becoming our therapy session?
did you think it was going to be any other way?
I'm really starting to get. So, okay.
I
So,
was thinking before, when Joey's acting a certain way in public, um, how it's kind of carried into my adulthood and how, again, I don't know if this stems from my childhood with Joey. Probably, actually. I don't know where else it would have stemmed from. But even today, my husband Michael is a photographer. All the time, he'll be recording somewhere in public or shooting somewhere or standing in front of something because he's trying to capture an amazing footage, amazing image, and he is doing nothing wrong. He is being like every other photographer capturing something,
right.
and I have a problem where I'm like, hey, you're in the way of this or doing that, or someone's trying to do something and you're capturing this, and what if they see it? And he's like, oh my God, chill out, it's okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like, I feel bad because I'm trying to get better at that, but that's something that has still carried
It's
into
it's
my
an old
adulthood.
trauma that is definitely continuing to surface. Very interesting,
Big
Jess.
time.
I love it. There's a lot of questions I still want to ask. I actually would like you to tell the journey rather than me, as far as from your point of view of mom is doing this crazy thing with the spell board to where you are right now. Can you tell the story of all that? Because
Yeah.
mom's done a lot of crazy things with Joey. Like, in fairness,
Mom's
there's
had
been
a
a
lot
lot.
of crazy thoughts in life. Yeah. He's
In
been
fairness,
everywhere.
there's been a lot of phone calls. I'm doing this with Joey. I'm doing this with Joey.
Yeah.
So I get why you guys aren't all like, "Wow, this sounds
Well,
amazing."
and to your credit, you're wanting to do everything you possibly can to help out Joey. So you've tried everything. And a lot of those things don't work, but you have to try it to know. And so, right, to your point, when you first started saying you were doing this, I don't think I was um, not supportive of it. I mean, the concept was great. I didn't know anything about it. Speaking of the letterboarding,
We're talking about spelling to communicate, using a letterboard, a simple letterboard to point to the letters to be able to communicate.
yeah. When Joey was little, I remember he had the iPad that had the pictures, or I had that as reference, and also the reference that it didn't really work with him.
Right.
Um,
It did it. At PEX, we tried the PEX. Remember all the picture cards we had
oh
all over the
yeah,
house?
oh
We had
yeah,
sheets of picture cards. We tried all of that. None of it.
oh yeah, and so of course I'm hopeful. I don't really know anything about it. You're explaining it. It sounds great. You know, you're going back and forth, and you're finally it's getting to a state where he's showing signs that there's some progress. I mean, it was a slow build of understanding it. I don't think it really hit me until you were explaining that he was spelling out words like philosophy and um,
Synesthesia.
describing what was that?
Synesthesia. That was his last class was on synesthesia. She asked, "What do you want to talk about or discuss?" And he's like, "Synesthesia." And
Yeah. And so at first it was kind of the thought of, because of how letter spelling to communicate works is you do the lesson, she
yeah,
gives the answer, right? And
yeah,
the teacher, and then he, from listening and from the memory of it, goes through and spells what the answer is.
yeah.
So like she's giving the answer, he's just spelling it back is how it all starts. And so when he first started spelling back, it was this revelation of, oh, Joey's one of those autistic individuals that just has a crazy amazing memory and is able to just take what she's saying and spit it back out. And that's kind of where I thought it was at,
Right.
was just that he maybe was the savant that was a crazy mathematician that we had no idea. And because that is how I also grew up with understanding autism, is I only knew Joey being he was the most severe individual in that realm that I had
I've never
ever had
seen.
reference of. I had never seen anyone else who was as severe as Joey. I had never, even online or through movies or anything, I had never known anyone on Joey's level. And how autism has always been portrayed is they usually are autistics that, speaking autistics, and they are like these crazy mathematicians that have this incredible skill. So when he started doing that spelling, I just figured that was kind of at the extent it was. This was something that we unlocked, but never, ever, ever, ever would have imagined that he was going to start writing with his own thoughts, and his own like consciousness would start coming out. And what was the first thing, do you remember that he, oh, it was the salt. I know the salt story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I don't
That was
know if that's
okay.
something that,
What Jesse's referring to is what was the first time he answered a question that wasn't prompted. In other words, the teacher reads lessons and he answers questions based on what is prompted. And this time it was a picture of the desert at night, and it was white. And the teacher was like, "That doesn't really make sense. I don't understand why the desert's like white at night, because it's the desert, so it wouldn't make sense that there's snow. But is that maybe it's just a white sand? What do you think, Joey? Is it white sand or is it snow?" And he spelled it's salt, and he knew that it was
crazy.
the salt mountains in, I don't know where it was, Turkey or something like
Did
that.
she just, the teacher, she just kind of, she had this picture. Did she know that it was salt? Like, how did
No,
that photo
no,
even get picked?
she got it. She just took a picture off the internet of the desert at night, is what. And so So that's when we started to realize, and I had told you about that, but honestly, I still don't think it even kicked in that big until you were actually in the lesson.
Yeah, and I will say though, because you were saying that even when he said the salt thing, that no one really understood the depth of that and how far it was going to go. And that's true. But it was the first moment, still, of course, that I had thought that there is maybe more. And it's still today, even fast forward to today, which I know we'll get into, it's still hard for me to digest that.
Yeah.
That Joey's able to communicate his own thoughts independently. Because, again, my entire life has been with Joey how we've thought he was without being able to communicate. Like, it's just, that's just been my reality, is Joey doesn't have his own way of communicating his thoughts about things. Does he have thoughts? What is he? I mean, God, as a kid, all the time I would think, what does Joey dream about? Does he dream? You know, I think
Right.
everyone in our family can say we've all had dreams of Joey talking to us. I've woken up before crying because I had a profound dream of Joey talking. And I mean, it's, of course, it's a desire. As any parent or family member or someone who loves an individual that can't communicate or can't speak, that's all you want to know is just that they're in there and they're taking the information that you're giving
Right.
them and you're having a connection in that way. So when the whole salt lesson happened, that's where I'm like, every single time you go, I want to know. I want to know what's going on. I want to stay involved with this.
And so before Thanksgiving, you went to a session.
Well, and even before that, you had told me, hey, just so you know, Joey has been, every single lesson that Joey has, at the very end of it, once
Oh,
he's
right,
kind of
right.
become comfortable with going back and forth and feels like he's in the zone, we're able now to ask him like one, maybe two questions that he's able to give his own answer to, like an open-ended question. And mom asked me, would you like to be a part of one of them? And would you like to ask your own question? And of course, yes, I wanted to do that. And I remember sitting in the week leading up to the trip thinking about, gosh, what is the first question I'm going to ask Joey? And it was so broad. I mean,
Fairness, she even AI'd it.
of
She
course.
did.
Actually, I wish I could read it. I did. I asked ChatGTP. I explained the whole situation. And even ChatGTP was like, this is a really profound moment between you and your brother. And that's how I knew. It's like, even the computer was like,
I'm
this is a
so
really big
glad.
moment.
I'm so glad.
Um, and I'm actually really happy I did that because my brain was going in so many different directions. They just needed it to be focused into something that was still on a pretty basic level. It's anywhere from like, what is your favorite color? It sounds simple, but I kind of want to know, what is Joey's favorite color?
Yeah, sure.
To do I ask him about something from my childhood, our childhood? And then I was thinking, well, maybe that's too complex. Maybe Joey can't go that far back in his brain. I mean, we don't really understand still to the extent of how he can answer these questions. So I narrowed it down to, I think, one or two questions. And when my mom picked me up from the airport, it was like 1 a.m. or something. I felt so bad how late it was. And even just on the drive back, we were talking about it. And I said, one of the questions I'm thinking about asking is, you know, I only see Joey really once, maybe twice a year,
Right.
because that's how often I fly up there. And when I see him, it's not the relationship we had as kids. We're not cuddling, we're not holding hands or having a deep connection. Joey's very much so independently in his own world, and he's there with us, but there's not as much of a connection. And I've carried a lot of guilt from that relationship or how it is today. Because I feel bad that we don't have the relationship we used to have. And so I wanted my question to be, I don't see you all the time. So when I do, how can I best interact with you so we can make the most of that? And after talking to you about it, you said, I think it's a great question, but we've kind of actually just recently covered this in one of his most recent letterboarding sessions. And his answer was he just wants to be around people. Like that's how he best
Right.
wants to connect and
Right.
act with the family.
Right. He says this over and over again. He wants to be included.
Yeah. So although I wanted to ask that, I realized that I also don't want to just get that answer and feel like I wasted a question. Anyways, somehow we came up with the question just asking Joey, um, is there anything you wanted to tell me? And at first I thought that was way too broad. But we're like, hey, let's try it out. Yeah, we'll see. And very respectfully, Mom, I give you a lot of credit for this. You said you should tell Joey a day before or leading up to it, like going to the lesson, tell him your question so he has time to think about it, which is something I would have never thought of. And so, we're in the car, Joey's rocking and humming, and as I've always thought of him not paying attention, but he clearly was paying attention, but that was kind of the interaction, and I'm like, okay, I guess I asked Joey this question while I feel like he's in his own world, but I'll say it anyways just so he can hear it, and I say, hey Joe, we're heading over to your letterboarding. I'm going to ask you a question this time, and it's going to be, if there's anything you've ever wanted to tell me, and we'll see what you think. And we go into the lesson, and it's about probably 30 minutes later or so. And he goes through his whole course, which was really cool to watch because I've been receiving the updates of his lessons for weeks and months at this point, years at this point, right? Oh my God, I don't know how long it's been.
Yeah.
And so I understand how it goes, and I'm already prepared and knowing that he's going to be able to answer these unopened questions, but there's a level of skepticism that you have
Yeah.
just because it's hard to believe because when your whole reality is knowing someone one way and then all of a sudden it changes, it really unfortunately kind of is one of those you got to see it to believe it. And so, and I wanted to be clear, I didn't think that it wasn't happening, that there was like
Oh,
some
no, no,
sham
no.
behind
I
it.
hear what you're saying. Yeah.
But being in there and
Right.
sitting behind, so I sat behind him. Mom always sits next to him, and then the teacher's on the other side. I sat behind him. I also was very aware of not wanting to make him feel uncomfortable or like, that I was watching him. I didn't want him to feel uncomfortable by that. So I just kind of sat behind and observed. And he was good, but he was a little bit rusty at first. And then as I understand the lessons go, it builds up and he gets more comfortable and he's able to hit the letters a little bit quicker with more focus. And so as it progressed on, it was like, okay, whoa, this is hard to believe. It's really, I mean, you can't dispute it. It's happening. I'm watching him move his fingers to answer a question. It was absolutely wild. And then it gets to the time when he gets asked my question. And I honestly was trying to prepare myself for disappointment because I didn't want to expect that there was going to be this moment that he revealed, something even like I love you. I was like, that would have been amazing to hear that. But I was honestly thinking that when the question was asked, is there anything you want to ask Jessie or you've ever wanted to tell Jessie? I mean, I thought that he would have been like, no, or hi, or I don't know, yeah, like something that did. And you even told me, you said, hey, like just so you know, he may not
You're
respond. Like we
right.
don't know. Like you
Right.
you just have to
Right.
prepare for that. And so the question gets asked, and he does kind of pause, and then he goes right into it, and he goes to J, and then E, And then it's clear he's spelling my name S-S-I-E. And I swear to you, that alone was like, I,
He knows my
I know.
name.
Honestly, I mean, it sounds so simple, but yeah, because
It was that connection.
it
Yeah.
was the connection that he knew
Yeah.
that he was recognizing who I was. Because it's not like I've ever heard him be like, Jessie, hey Jessie, you're Jessie, you
Yeah.
know? I remember even as kids, we'd be like, Joey, point to Jessie or something. Just because you don't know. It's like, we don't even know if he was connecting that. So just to have him say, type Jessie, if you don't know, Mom and I are both very emotional people, and we cry at commercials. We're one of those people. And so just having him type Jessie, I mean, I started to choke up. And he kept going. He wrote YOU, and then you have, always. And it was just word after word that was like, the answer hadn't been released. Like, what is he going to say? What have I always been? And then I started to honestly panic. I was like, oh my God, is he going to reveal some dark childhood secret? Or is he going to, like, oh my God, what is he going to say? What have I always been? Does he hate me? I have no idea. You have always been like, oh my God, what have I always been?
Let's start with the B.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And then he wrote Light in My Life. And I
Oh yeah.
I can't even put words into how that moment made me feel. I mean, even today, it makes me choke up. To know that he sees me in such a positive way, to imply that I've always been this light in his life. Oh my God. Come on. That's insane.
Amazing.
It's just, especially the fact that we have been disconnected over the last few years. I would have thought that he would have thought that I abandoned him or something as a sibling. That
But
was a
even
huge moment.
after he had said he had loved me, and I had said, I'm so sorry, all these years I didn't know you were so connected and so in there. And he said, I get it, forgiven.
Yeah.
You know, he knows it's been a challenge for us as well.
Yeah.
And the empathy and love that he has. So, I mean, that kind of like brings me into, you know, what the whole experience has taught you about love and how you feel towards him now. Like, what is your relationship and feeling towards him now?
So that was the last time I saw him, was that when that question had been answered. I'm looking forward to seeing him again because I just want to start rekindling that relationship with the understanding that even if I say to him, even if I walk up to him or sit down by him while he's doing whatever and say, "Hey, I'm sorry that we haven't been as close," and just explaining where I'm at in my life and just talking to him like a sibling, just so he has that information, because he doesn't know unless, I'm on speaker around you when I'm at home and talking to you. I mean, he doesn't know what's happening in my life. And now I know that he can get those updates, and I want him to be involved in that and involved in my life more.
And we both Jess and I have listened to the telepathy tapes, and we definitely love it and feel, we just don't know the extent of what Joey's telepathy is. Like, does he know that we're okay? Does he know that we're thinking of him? Does he know that we love him?
Yeah.
We're too early in the spelling process to know specifically where Joey's at with all of that, but we can certainly make assumptions that he knows to our core that love that we have for him.
Yeah.
And is able to connect with at least that.
Well, and what was so beautiful is that when he answered that about me, he said that, I mean, I was like, let's go sit down right now and ask him every question we have ever had for him. Like I was, let's do this. And that's when you explained to me it's a bit more complicated than that. It's a lot of it's just focus and getting Joey to stay there and put
Right,
the
right,
energy into spelling everything out. So you can't
right.
just do it all the time, at least not right now. Um, but we were able to ask him the following week when he went back to his class about my sister, and he was able to give a really beautiful answer. What was it? You've always had a
I love your mindset,
yeah.
and
You've
I
always had
stress a wonderful mindset. I want to be more like you, which is
yeah.
interesting because that's something that's come up a lot. So Mia, Jesse's sibling Mia, is has her master's in social work, and she's very much about changing the systems, changing the policies. And so when Joey said, he said he wanted to be more like Mia, and then later told us that he wanted to study systemic advocacy, and I had to call Mia. What does that mean? Like, it's what I do. It's changing the systems. I'm like, okay, I
Which is
didn't know
super
that,
cool.
but thanks. Glad Joey taught me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, his love, it was interesting too, Jess, because right before Christmas, we asked him what he wanted for Christmas, and he said, I would love to take a hike with the family. I mean, that's all he cares about. He just wants to
Yeah.
be with you.
Just wants to be with the family. Yeah.
And it's a continued challenge. So
Yeah.
as we're starting to wrap up here, what is your feeling now towards autism? And I mean, I know you've listened to the telepathy tapes. For me, I am starting to realize that Joey is a teacher like none other. Like Joey and those like Joey are here to help and guide us. They've taught us incredible patience and love and empathy and understanding, and they still love us and connect with us despite the fact that we have said and done things that probably were very horrible, not knowing that they were listening, things such as that. And they have so much love. And I mean, he is such a great teacher for me. I have a whole new view of autism now. And that's what I'm curious about. Like, what is your feeling in general towards now that the fact, knowing that your brother has had this journey that is so remarkable and a really remarkable journey of life, what do you want? What do you?
So many things, but also I'm still digesting it. I think one of the main things is I just want I want to find a system or a method that allows this type of education for everyone to be able to do the most basic human function, which is just giving them a voice. And everyone should have the right to that. And so I think that's really changed my perspective on things, is knowing that Joey has his own thoughts and Joey has his own desires, and now we can finally take that. I mean, just even from the standpoint of the other day, you were asking him, he seemed a little bit off in his lesson, and you asked him if everything was okay, and he pretty much relayed to you that he was constipated, and you were
Yeah,
able to help him with that. And
yeah,
I think that is such a great example of why caring for someone like Joey is so hard, is because you never know what is going on with them. He's never, I mean, before he did the letterboarding, I'm sure you'd probably end up finding out that he was constipated, but I mean, he's able to tell you that right away. He's
yep.
able to relate to you if something's going on, or if he wants muffins instead of pancakes in the morning, like you asked him that one time. Like, just those little things to allow his voice to come out, and the things that he's wanted to come out, that he hasn't been able to express before. I just want that for everyone. And I want there to be a method and a system that makes that accessible to everyone. The fact that letterboarding is not a very common, what lesson
Therapy.
class therapy that you
Yeah.
can get
Intervention.
everywhere
Yeah.
is it's sad and it's wild that something that works so well isn't available everywhere.
And
And
actually has controversy around it. Oh, they're not really spelling. That's the part
yeah,
that's the craziest.
yeah,
But that's why it
you
was so
don't know
powerful.
until you try. Yeah.
That's right.
Uh,
Oh, Jesse, this was great. This was a lot of fun. Thank you. I really appreciate having you on. Hopefully, I'll have you on again. Maybe we'll have you and Joey on together sometime in the future.
I hope that we can get in a place soon where Joey's just going to be a typing machine. That's the
I know.
thing. I think I'm very impatient about that. I just want to ask him every single question in
I
the
know.
book.
It's hard not to. It
Yeah.
really is. He gets so frustrated with me if I ask too many questions. There's nothing that can make him angrier, but yet he's willing to do it for like 10 minutes a day, something like
Yep.
that. And it's just it takes a good almost 8 minutes to get him warmed up to where he's really going rapidly, and then he'll tolerate it for like 5 more minutes, and then it's over.
Have because I know the whole thing is like you holding it up at a certain height and for him to be able to hit it and stuff. What if you even have it like taped to a wall that it's at the
So
height,
that
you
is
know?
not, I'm going to have Meg on the show soon, and Meg's going to explain the reason why that doesn't work as well, because it's an interactive process. It's not, it's a gross motor interactive process that you need to be a part of in the communication, just like eye contact is part of the communication for most people. So holding the board means something. It's an important aspect of it.
Right. And you remove it when you need to kind of reset the brain. So I get that
Exactly.
too, which you can't really do. Exciting. We're at the very beginning of understanding who Joey is, and I'm excited to see what comes out of him in the next
I
few
love
years.
it. Thank you so much, Jesse, and thank you everybody for joining us. Until next week, thanks for being here. We'll talk to you soon.